everyone. Welcome back to Notice That, an EMDR podcast. Jen and I are here to kind of wrap up our 4-part series on the working memory theory. And we're finally getting to sit down with our last guest of the interview series.
Yeah, this has been a few months in the making.
Yeah.
Had a few people reach out and say, like, when are those other episodes coming?
Yeah, so here we are.
They'll be here.
That's right. Here we are. So just to give a little kind of overview, if this is the first episode of the series that you're listening to, there's been 3 conversations before this. The first 2 episodes are just Jen and I kind of giving a general overview of what the working memory theory is inside EMDR as a proposed mechanism of change and the action that's actually facilitating reprocessing inside EMDR. So that was the first 2 conversations. We went deep into the neurobiology of EMDR and how the working memory theory is depending on physiological action in the brain to facilitate the desensitization and reprocessing that we're hoping for from a process standpoint inside EMDR.
And in that, from that perspective, how EMDR is actually reducing distress levels around trauma, increasing an adaptive understanding of these experiences. So walking through that as a theory for change, not a specific modality of how we do it,
right?
But understanding the theory behind it, which kind of led into our 3rd episode, which was a really cool one.
Very exciting. We got to do our 3rd episode with Ad de Jong and Susie Mathiasen from the Netherlands, the developers of EMDR 2.0, but also very accomplished researchers in studying the various proposed mechanisms of change inside EMDR. So that was at the EMDR conference in Anaheim.
Just a couple of weeks ago. And we barely got to scratch the surface with them, but in their presentation around 2.0, it's looking at how that is a model for implementing working memory theory. That's one model. I think what's important in the series to name is that's not the only way that we might use working memory theory to enhance our practice. Is not just 2.0, but it's a model that's structured that is fully built upon the theory of working memory,
right?
And how to work with that.
Yeah.
So that brings us into then our 4th episode, where we want to kind of start to talk about how do we incorporate working memory theory, some of the techniques and interventions that could come in to support just a standard EMDR practice.
Right.
And a friend that we have made who's developed a platform that has these features to help clinicians do this.
Yeah. So welcome to the podcast, Sander.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we got to have a version of this conversation the first time that we met in person in Canada. I don't really remember when that was, like a year ago.
It was in Canada. It was Canada. I don't know. It was Canada.
It was beginning of this year.
Yeah, beginning of this year. Okay. It feels like longer ago than that to me. So that was the first time that we got to actually meet you in person. But then since then, we've seen you also at the EMDR conference, obviously, getting to spend a lot of time together. But yeah, I would love to just kind of turn it over to you to introduce yourself and how you're feeling coming into this conversation today.
Yeah, I think the only event in between Canada and the US was Australia for us, and you were not there. So maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Yeah.
It's a big trip.
Maybe next
It's a
year.
very big trip.
It's a big trip for us as well. So it was quite something. No, I'm Sander. I'm a founder of Moved. Move is a Dutch company, and we're working on building and developing EMDR tools for the last 5 years. We are, in my opinion, a typical startup in building a platform that would help clinicians to deliver optimal EMDR that's done or remote or in person. And we do a lot of research on how we could really enhance the way EMDR is done with digital tools. And we're sharing some interesting ideas in our last conference meeting. So happy to be here.
It's so great to have you on. And I know we did, as Bridger mentioned, a version of this, but today feels different, even like the kind of relationship and friendship we've got to build with you and your brother Menno. meeting you guys at the conferences. It feels a lot different sitting down with you now and talking about what you do and the ideas that we're kind of coming up with together and the energy that's building between Beyond Healing, Notice That, and you guys and what you're up to at the tech side of things.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
curious.
no,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I agree. It's really interesting that although the events are at the other side of the world, that now finally we, after an event like that, had some really good follow-up conversations with people and organizations that are on the same, in my opinion, way of like thinking about some things differently and researching how we could improve stuff. So it's really interesting to brainstorm more and more on how we can, yeah, build a product that's helping clinicians more and more, because that's for us, that's where it's all about.
Yeah, it's such a powerful, I think, opportunity to come together at a conference like that and actually meet the people that you're developing tools for. I know for us as podcasters, that's one of the things that I was surprised by when we first went to the summit, of just how powerful it would feel to put faces to names. And even if I'd met them before on Zoom or something like that, just getting the opportunity to be in person and spend time together, have a meal, have drinks, have whatever. But just to get to hang out like that, it's really special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing I feel like is an important thing to name, if we all share a value and like continuing to support the field of EMDR and psychotherapy and evolving with technology, evolving with research, incorporating new things. And I think that's a value it seems like your company has as well. There's a lot of technology out there, but one thing I've seen in you guys is there's always the like, okay, but how could we make this better? How could we make this more usable? What gap could we fill for clinicians that are out there? Like, what are their pain points and how could technology come in to maybe like alleviate that in some way, which is really exciting as a clinician to have, someone looking at that and then offering a product to support.
Yeah, I think also what's interesting for us, we're a Dutch company, but we have users all around the world. But you see a lot of, I'm not sure if it's cultural differences, but there's a lot of differences in different countries in the way EMDR is done. Of course, the main principles are the same everywhere, but when you're building a product for an EMDR clinician, it's really different. A Dutch one compared to a US one, compared sometimes to Australian clinicians. And we're just learning so much by doing those conversations that every conference where you're going away with way more work because you're
Mm.
having a lot of ideas on what you can improve by actually talking to users one on one instead of this video call. So yeah, that's really nice to be at those conferences.
Yeah. And in that as well, the shared kind of vision, this is something that I've been glad to see grow just beyond, hey, your podcast, can you highlight our tech? Like, the development of the relationship to me has really been special, to see that we have that same visionary mindset for the field and that can grow into multiple collaboration opportunities. We're here to talk about WeMind today, but there's also different ways that we can continue to collaborate together and develop different software pieces or different tools for EMDR clinicians. So that's really exciting.
So, Sandra, in the development of your company, what kind of got you started in this field? Like, as a non clinician, how did you bump into the field of psychotherapy or EMDR and then start developing tech for it?
Yeah, actually, it started 7 years ago, I think. I'm now 28. I was 20-ish at the time, and I wanted to build something in tech in healthcare already for a long time, together with my brother. So we were brainstorming on some ideas on like, hey, what could we do? To go really into that rabbit hole will take too much time, but long story short would be that at some point we were looking for a therapist or a psychologist to brainstorm with us on some ideas we had. That was really early stage, so we had just one product, not really fancy. Then we at a local town here, my brother Menno went to the dentist and asked the dentist because we knew him really well about, hey, we're looking for a psychologist. This is what we're working on. Think with us. Do you know somebody? And he was like, yeah, here's a number of somebody. Call him up and we'll see. So actually, at the drive home from the dentist towards home, Menno called this number and we got Zhang on the phone by any luck. So we didn't know who he was. Luckily, we are not like in the trauma field, in PTSD world. So that's good for us. But then we're like, okay, he by any chance answered, said, okay, come by in Amsterdam to show me what you have. We met them. It clicked really well, had some interesting ideas, and became a bit of friends. And now, then back then, he said, I'm also, I've started a few years ago, Sidetrack, I think European leading clinic for PTSD. And so it was like, let's try some things out here. So we built a product, validated it, and then COVID hit. And then we really together stood for, okay, what could we build for EMDR specific to keep people going while in person is not possible anymore? And then that whole thing accelerated us towards building WeMind as it is right now, while still Sidetrack is using the product, but we're now having customers in I think 24 countries all around the world. So that's pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the relationship started before COVID. So the world that you were thinking would be there, you were already talking about WeMind, or did WeMind come along after that?
We were actually on the exposure therapy first. So the exposure therapy, what could you do? Could you do that with virtual reality, for example? That was just a brainstorm phase we were in. And then COVID hit. So we were actually thinking about sending VR headsets towards clients at home. But we decided not to do. The logistics were too complicated and too expensive. But got us thinking, but what can we do? And that's evolved into WeMind. That took a year of iterations,
Hmm.
doing a lot of research. That's when Susie Matthijssen also got on board to do some research and validation with Altrecht, the clinic where she was the director of, I think, back then. So doing pilot studies, getting some data, getting people actually on the products. Yeah, and now 5 years later, the product doesn't look anymore what it was in the beginning, but the principles remain the same, and that is how can we optimize dual attention stimulation or working memory taxation or BLS in a way you want to call it.
Mhm. Yeah, it feels like there's a next kind of era for you all of looking at how do we then build that tech in a way that therapists who practice in the US find it the same amount of like supportive and usable. You mentioned earlier of like the cultural differences or even just like the clinical differences of how EMDR might be implemented in the States compared to in the Netherlands, which I have been just fascinated by, like looking at culturally how different it can be experienced. But I think that that's a piece where, like, when we came to meet you then, there was just such a curiosity and openness of, like, what are you facing in your sessions, or what are you seeing in your consultees and your trainees, and how does this platform come to maybe resolve some of the conflicts that we're bumping into or the issues that we're facing?
Yeah, again, like we've built a product for Dutch clinicians, but I think it's really there are differences that were so important for us to really understand how it is for a US based or Canadian based therapist. How does EMDR actually work? And how can we build a tool around that that would support the clinician? So also our second product, like Practice EMDR, we had a podcast about it where there's like virtual avatars where you can practice EMDR with. That product is not available in the Netherlands because it's not really, we don't have a big use case here. The use case was when we were talking to US-based trainers and consultants telling us there's so many people dropping out of certification, not finishing up due to the fact they don't have clients or they cannot practice. And then the idea came, look, let's build an AI avatar that will be your client so that you can practice. So that product is in the US available, and really a lot of people use it. But in the Netherlands, we don't even market it because the way the educational piece is set up is different, the way people are trained is different. So we don't see that market here that well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's I feel like I wanna talk a little bit about WeMind itself as a product and what all it does offer to clinicians, that might be listening to this episode right now. It feels like there's several different features, ultimately, one starting at the most standard implementation of EMDR as we've learned it here in basic training, and then continuing to add on features that help support the clinician, then support the client. So, Sunder, will you just introduce us a little bit to like what's the most standard features? Like, what does WeMind really offer a clinician?
Yeah, no, WeMind is a web application website that's being used by a therapist and a client. And like, first of all, we want to facilitate everything that you need as a clinician in all phases of EMDR, from phase one till phase eight. You can do it all in our platform. And it doesn't matter for us what kind of modality you use, believe, or go with. So if you just want to do standard BLS on a big screen, that's possible. If you want to do more advanced working memory taxation, that's possible. And if you want to do personalized dual attention stimulation to keep the client in the optimal window of tolerance or keep it in the window of tolerance, that's also possible. And we do that feature based. So if you just want to use one set of features, the price is different, the features are different. So we try to really make a product that's useful for all of them. But we try to be an all-in-one platform. There's a lot of clinicians, at least last, I would say 6 months, the mindset is shifting from I am not afraid to use AI, but what is this all about and what is going to happen in my field? Towards, for example, at the MDR conference, a lot of them are using an AI note taker from
Yeah.
their EHR. So it's getting more mainstream to use a lot of products. So we had customers saying, I have a Zoom subscription for video calling. I have a BLS tool that I pay for. I have a AI note taker that I pay good bucks for, and totally and I have a light bar running and I have Tapper. So all of that we try to combine on a platform where there's video calling included, AI transcribing included, all HIPAA compliant, of course. That's a big thing when we launched the product in the US.
Yeah.
Figured that out, but we did last year. So we try to be like an all-in-one platform for everything that you need in a session.
Yeah, I just want to highlight that again for the listeners that what WeMind is capable of offering is a replacement for your video platform that you're using, the note-taking software that you're using, the BLS delivery system that you're using. All of those individual subscriptions or purchases can now be consolidated into one subscription to WeMind.
Yes.
And so to me, that's really the selling point of if you're doing virtual EMDR. I'm thinking about our listeners that I'm like in relationship with. If you're doing virtual EMDR, to me, from a cost benefit analysis standpoint, this is like a no brainer. But even if you're doing in person, there are ways to still take advantage of that kind of consolidated cost share, and let this be the primary. I think I'm saying it how you would say it, like this being the primary tool for EMDR clinicians, regardless of virtual or in person.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if you as a clinician noticed this as well, but for example, in the Netherlands, when COVID hit, everybody went online.
Mm-hmm.
Then after COVID, when things opened up again, people were like, I I will do both. But the first reaction of a lot were, I'm going switching back to face again. But both did remote. Now, I think a year ago, people were, in my opinion, exhausted from doing any online work, so they switched back to completely in
Mm.
person. And now I think really like we're setting up a new work structure. It's all hybrid. So there was like
Mhm.
swings in what people preferred based on where we were. And that got from our case, a lot of people used WeMind completely in person when COVID was there, or sorry, remote. Then all of them used them in person, and now we see a good mix of people doing hybrid, like in-person WeMind and remote. And the way we set up WeMind now with some updates is that if you have in-person sessions, instead of like setting up a light bar or any other hardware device, just open up WeMind and you could do actually the same as with the light bar. And it's all included in the subscription. So we have a specific face-to-face mode that would eliminate all the remote tools that you normally use, but you have all the face-to-face equipment needed and still benefit it in one subscription.
Yeah. And I love the idea of being able to support the clinician in whatever modality they're wanting to offer through one platform. I think a lot of people that I talk to in their experience of their practice evolving through COVID, there was an initial kind of grief over losing the face to face. But as COVID kind of went the way that it did and people saw that the world was still going to be around, I saw a lot of people adjust to, I actually like doing virtual work now, and it gives me flexibility. It lets me be where I need to be. And so a lot of the people that I'm thinking of in my mind have a hybrid practice, but a majority of it is still virtual. Um,
I also see and experience myself even of like virtual is a new convenience that we have. It's like,
yeah.
oh, I can't make it in, but I could still do my session. We join virtually. When you have one platform, then we offer consistency for the client.
Yes.
They're familiar with what it looks like. They're familiar with how it functions. There's that like kind of carryover consistency when maybe we need the flexibility of switching from in person to virtual
Right.
as demand. So to kind of recap, it's a one-stop shop. Everything's in one place, as well as, with that, it can be in person or virtual. The second piece I want to name is that it is, it's a very beautiful platform. Like I love aesthetics and things to look nice. And that's one thing I really appreciate.
Important.
It is. So, like the backgrounds that are offered on there, they're just very pleasing to look at. Well organized, everything just like looks really nice and high end technology. Another piece that you mentioned earlier that I want to break down a little bit more is the incorporation of the window of tolerance and being able to gauge and measure if a client is still within their window of tolerance. Clinically, we have a lot of tools for this of observing body language, tracking eye movements, checking in with the client, but some of those are limited in a virtual platform. It's hard to see body. It's hard to, gauge their expressions as closely as maybe we would in person. So, Sandra, can you share a little bit about what feature you guys developed to tend to that for the clinician?
Yeah, so while WeMind offers a lot like tools that would enhance a therapeutic session, the core of what we do remains in how can we automate or optimize the way we do the taxation. And we've figured out a system, and my colleague Joe Teunissen, PhD now, did his research and thesis on how we could enhance the working memory taxation and optimize it. So he did a lot of research on how can we actually automate the level of taxation that's needed for a client to be optimal. And the way we do that is that we give a client, instead of just following a ball from left to right with eyes, also an active random interval repetition. So it's a random task, and it can be auditory, visual, it can be verbal. We were working also on kinesthetic, like buzzing stuff. So we try to tax the senses, but we do it randomly. And what you would do is we ask a client to press certain keys if something happens. And the system around it is measuring how hard basically the client feels this certain distraction task is for his level. And I'm not sure if you as clinicians experienced it, but some people have lower working memory capacity and some clients have really high, and how to tax that difference from person to person. And instead of doing that based on experience, what works really well, we do it based on data. So we try to take the guessing out of actual the part four, desensitizing that memory, and do it for you.
Yeah. I want to have this conversation in the context of some of the earlier episodes in the series, because when we talked about the neurobiology of EMDR, we talked about the three kind of primary networks that are involved in the default mode network, the central executive network, and the salience network. What you're talking about right now, Sonder, is a really innovative way of giving real-time feedback to the relative integration of those networks as a client is progressing through the different images that they may be experiencing, the different sensations that they may be experiencing associated with the trauma memory. So in traditional EMDR, we're having to rely on the attunement between therapist and client, a very intuitive sense that is informed by visual feedback, auditory feedback, all of these things that we're making of the client, of where are they at in their window of tolerance. You know, you have the stop sign, but other than that, you're leaning on your intuition to say, I think they're getting too dysregulated. We need to incorporate a resource or something like that. What your random interval taxation kind of approach is doing is it's saying, let's give a medium through the keys or through whatever to let the client tell us where they are in how they're able to respond to those tasks. So theoretically, the more integrated or within the window of tolerance a client may be, the more accurate they'll be in performing these random interval tasks. And that gives us a window into, okay, they're ready to keep going, even if they are showing us signs of, I'm getting dysregulated. If the data on the software side says they're actually in their window here, we're doing well. That's another piece of just an incredible gift to clinicians. I see of, it's like you're having a third person in the room optimize the therapeutic experience for the client by their relationship, not just the therapist having to read the mind or be, some wizard of just knowing how optimal the distress tolerance is at the time.
Yeah, actually like that. And we have an analogy at the office as well with, in my opinion, really experienced clinicians, of course, can do this really, really, really well without WeMind. But also, while it's valuable for experienced clinicians, what if you're just starting out and you have to do this? Like what to look for, how to feel this. And we're trying to help, especially those clinicians feeling more confident. And that's what we've built the product around. And I was listening to the episode 4 with Adjong and Susie, and where he, I think, stated somewhere like, "Hey, the more taxation, the better." That's their emphasis. And what we try to do is take that what is more out of it and do that based on how the client is performing.
Right.
Yeah, and do that like for example, if you're doing remote sessions, clients need to press keys on the keyboard. If you're in person, a client has a phone or an iPad or a computer in front of him, but on an iPad it's touchscreen buttons. So we're making those normally like passive eye movements tasks interactive by giving the client a task. So for gamers or kids, it can really enhance the way the session is done because it gets in some way gamified or fun. So I
Right.
think besides the research why it works, there is other benefits on how it could enhance your clinic.
Yeah, we were playing around with it yesterday, and I joined Jen's session on the WeMind platform on my iPhone. And I love how it instructs you as soon as you click on that link to turn your phone, to the
Yeah,
side, and then it looks like a video game.
a Game Boy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. No, it's cool. And maybe the good thing to emphasize is that WeMind's like we of course also research like why it works, the modality, etc. But last year we did a comparison study between a control group that was it's all PTSD patients. Control group did EMDR in person with a light bar, and our group did WeMind in person with the WeMind system on iPads and phones. And in that specific study, we looked at SUT degrees and especially the time it took for the SUT 2 degrees. And it was 49% faster in the WeMind condition due to the fact that we tax way more and better and more accurate. So that was the reason in the Netherlands now that WeMind is getting reimbursement by health insurance. So clinicians in the Netherlands are getting reimbursed to use our system because we can prove and show that if you do it this way, it is more efficient. And yeah, of course, in the US that is not applicable, but maybe in the future we can go on that route as well.
Yeah, not to put you on the spot, do you remember the relative sample size for each group? How large they were?
Yeah, it was a pilot study. It was not a big study, but there were in my 24 patients per group.
Okay.
So around almost 50 clients with PTSD.
Yeah, just thinking from the research side, obviously that's going to be the needle mover in conversations around should EMDR be reimbursed, and then as that continues to be advocated for, what about WeMind that is celebrating 49% on average more efficient results? That's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you know, research is really expensive, and we're a
Yes.
startup, but we're actually in a randomized clinical trial with a product. So hopefully in 2027, we can publish that data. So we're trying to get there, but yeah, it takes also a lot of time and effort, of course.
Absolutely.
I want to speak to one of the advantages I have personally found with that platform. As everyone knows that listens to Notice That, we have a very like relational approach, and we emphasize that personal relationship with our clients and just kind of showing up as our most natural selves with our clients. To bring in working memory taxation is awkward for me. Like it's kind of bizarre to like throw random things at the client in terms of like math problems or ABCs. Like it's not like a natural, warm like flow and connection. And something with WeMind allows like that burden to be held by the platform.
Right.
And I can still just hold kind of my natural presence. I'm not then like burdened with what do I need to be like prompting them to say or to do or to how do I disrupt or this processing for them or kind of interrupt that. But the system itself will do that. So I can just click a button and it will take care of that. And that kind of odd task or disrupting task is associated with the platform, not necessarily associated with me.
Right.
And so then I get to hold this relational thread with them, and that gets to kind of do that really effective piece. And it's been a nice like collaboration or feeling those come together, which I think for others who practice really relationally might find that as a benefit as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the question that comes to my mind is that where we were at the EMDR event in Anaheim, you hear the keynotes and presentations, and the weird thing, in my opinion, as a non-clinician, is that there's so many theories about why it works and what works, and in essence, they all work. Like we have a lot of users in all groups, they all work. There's also, in my opinion, not a matter of what works or that one does not work, but for me, I wanted to ask you both, like, if you're just trained in regular EMDR from basic training, so you're doing eye movements left to right, using WeMind eye movements left to right, the active visual task, but letting it adapt to the speed of the client, do you feel that that can be incorporated without needing to change the way you do EMDR? Because in our opinion, there can be place for everything. But I was just wondering, while you were playing around with everything, do you feel that people need to really adapt their way of doing EMDR to use this system?
I think that's what the system, the benefit is I don't have to adapt to anything. The system will do the adaptation. Where when we're, maybe trying to incorporate this without a platform, just in our virtual work with manual eye movements or in-person work, I have to do the adapting. I have to step outside of my comfort and kind of my natural energy and flow of a session and make those modifications, which can kind of disrupt the relationship and just feel, like a burden I carry. But I do think with the platform, I get to maintain my presence in the way that feels comfortable to me and my clients. And then the platform itself gets to carry that responsibility.
Yeah, I think the first hurdle for clinicians is just the idea of technology being in the room. So for EMDR, there's already versions of higher tech in the room. Some people have light bars. They have the auditory system. They have all of these ways that they're used to orienting a client to the EMDR process. And that's where I think WeMind can come in to just naturally kind of build on the scaffolding that's already there for those clinicians. You would just be essentially getting rid of those pieces and just having a laptop, an iPad, or a phone, and you're still facilitating that same process. So I think that's one of the hurdles that's there. But then you have clinicians, like a lot of my practice is this way, where I prefer the tactile, which is just a little box that I like the corded version because I have had Bluetooth fail on me before, like all of these different things that to me, there's less orientation that I do for the client experience of here's all this weird tech. Like I'm just handing them tappers. And I feel like that's the type of clinician that may be slow to warm to the idea of a laptop or an iPad or a phone coming into their facilitation process. But I think once they understand that this is the only piece of tech that needs to be in the room, there's going to be an easier kind of, okay, I get this, I understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also when COVID was there, everybody had to learn something.
Right.
So everybody was using something.
Yeah.
Everybody can do it. That's good to emphasize. But what's the reason behind? I'm just really curious. Like, what's the explanation for? Because you're both trainers as well. Like, if you're on to just standard BLS, what's the reason to speed up the level of the BLS or slow down the level of BLS based on the client? So what would be the explanation for that? I'm just really curious about that, on your opinion.
Yeah, we get those questions all the time in certification, in basic training. And I would love for us both maybe to kind of give a response here. But for me, the response I give to the person, obviously, it's relative to what kind of question they're asking. If it's a case specific question of like, would you do faster BLS there or slow down? I'm leaning on my personal experience of similar circumstances with clients. But the explanation I give is that the BLS is trying to help facilitate what we're doing in the room. So it's not the causal mechanism. It's not the thing that says if it's not there, it won't work. It's trying to enhance and focus the work that we're already doing. So that gives us the freedom to pay attention to where the client is in. Are they getting stuck on a part of the trauma? Are they disengaging from the reprocessing session in some way? BLS is one of the variables that we can control to see if it makes a difference for the client to be able to stay engaged, move through the block that they're experiencing in the session, and continue on in their reprocessing phases. But when it comes to answering specific questions of like, would you slow down? Would you speed up? I have to lean on their own intuition in the room as a consultant and trainer to say, well, it really depends on what you're picking up from the client of, are they getting too activated, or are they getting, heading towards dissociation or dropping out of their window of tolerance? Because that may need you to adjust the BLS in a very specified way for that client. So it takes a lot of conversation explicitly with the client to say, does this feel too fast? Are you able to engage more because we sped it up or increased the intensity? Or does it need to slow down? That takes time in the session to figure out, and it's very individualized for the client. So that's another way that the platform is going to come along and say, we don't even need to talk about this stuff. We're going to do it as it's happening. It's going to automatically adjust to the client. But in those conversations with participants, I'm having to say it's an intuitive and explicit process to optimize the bilateral stimulation for that client.
Yeah, I
And
think
it's changing, right, in a session.
Yeah.
It's changing based on what they're noticing. It's changing based on, how much activation is showing up for them. So for me, to kind of reiterate what Bridger's saying, it's directly linked to that window of tolerance. We need them to have enough access and activation of the past and enough presence and grounding to recognize that the past isn't real again. So they're having to have that dual awareness, a foot in the past, a foot in the present, and bilateral stimulation, the speed and the length, how long do we have it go, is about finding that optimal place. And I think that is where we started to name with like WeMind. The system is measuring that for you based on how accurately are they clicking when that task changes, when it prompts them. And we don't, if they're clicking it perfectly, it's probably not, they're not accessing and activated quite enough to really be in the past. They're maybe too present oriented. They're very aware of the screen in the room, and they're really not accessing the past memory. But if they're right on that perfect threshold of it's not too easy, but it's not too hard, they're maintaining that balance, which is the optimal place for the memory consolidation to take place.
Yeah, cool. No, I always ask therapists when we onboard them, like, hey, try just to use WeMind without changing the way you do EMDR and see if it adds value towards your session. And for some it does, for most it does, but for some it's the same. So it's always interesting to learn all of those different nuances. And that's why I was curious on your perspective, because also we're talking to so many trainers and they're all of the ideas and theories they support are different. So it's interesting to learn more and more. And I think WeMind as a platform will keep evolving. Also together with you or with Beyond Healing, we have some interesting ideas. So yeah, we'll just try to build this product towards helping a therapist with a good platform.
Beautiful.
It's been fun to kind of walk through that. We're going to connect again just immediately after this to showcase for anyone who wants to follow on YouTube or to see the platform as we link some of these concepts that we've talked about here to actually getting to see what it looks like and how it functions. So, Sandra, thanks for walking us through that and answering all of our questions and bringing some good questions to the conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So if you're listening on the podcast, you'll want to transition to YouTube now because the episode will end here. But there's more conversation coming here in just a second for us. But for you, you'll have to go to YouTube to stay engaged.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us for the series on working memory taxation. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it throughout.
Absolutely.
But hopefully this gives you a good foundation. Hey, Sander. Bridger, we have a therapist and a client.
Here we are.
What's fun is that Bridger's the client on this, and I just get to observe. So, Sander, walk us through what WeMind looks like and what the experience is on the therapist side of it, as well as the client.
I was told to bring my phone into session today, so I hope you don't mind. I'm not texting like I'm.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you'll be my client today, Richard. So let's work on some trauma.
Okay, here we go.
Let's get this sorted out. I take no liability or responsibility.
Yeah, I had to sign a waiver before this. So
yes, it's always fun if we can switch roles. So this is the WeMind system. WeMind has a client management program or page where you create clients, and that will generate a link per client. So I just added Bridger as my client here. That generates a URL. I share that URL with my client through email or text for remote sessions or in the Zoom meeting if you are with your client, or you can connect through a certain code. You start your session, and in this way, I can copy the link and share it to Bridger. But what we're going to do is we're going to simulate the way an in-person session is done. So Bridger, the story is you're in my therapy room. I have WeMind open. You've brought your phone. The way we do that is by doing a quick start session that will pop up the link, but also a code. I will ask you as my client to go to internet on your phone, to Safari, go to app.wemindtherapy.com, your setup, and then fill in this code. So that's 142 518. And then connect.
hope it says this session ID was not valid.
So it is sorry, I think I misspelled 042.
Gotcha.
Did I? Sorry, 042 518.
Here we go. Rotate device.
Session. So you probably get a pop-up that you need to accept. Yes, there I can see my client joined in here. So you as a client only sees this window client view full screen. on your phone, and I see that you're joined in here. So first, what we're going to do is we'll pick a bit more neutral background because I know you like that, Richard. So leave the distraction out of it. And then what we can do is do also a video call. So if I would press this button, we're in person in this situation, but if it would be remote, where we choose video call, I would press the button. It will ask me to allow microphone. If I then press call client, Richard will get a pop-up, accepts it, and we're in some way a Zoom meeting or like our own video telehealth service in WeMind. So it's all in one. I will not start it now because it will mess up the audio and the video input from this podcast. But then I would
Standard
see Bridger here.
is your screen something that could be shared for the
Well,
viewer
he's
to see?
recording it on his
Oh,
side.
okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, we'll edit it in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would see Bridger here and myself like a Zoom call. So it's all in there. And if I am video calling, also, I could start a transcript here. And if I would have the transcript running, maybe I can send you a video of how that would look. Then I would have a HIPAA compliant word for word transcript of my session that I can then either save in the end of my session as a clinician on my own EHR system, or maybe as a consultee, share it with a trainer or a consultant. So there's a lot of use cases for that. And we hear a lot of EMDR clinicians actually using a AI powered transcriber, and that's awesome. I think there's great tools out there that are all general AI transcribers, and what we're really building now is being the EMDR specific transcriber, because with a session you could do so much information,
Yes.
distillating information, summarizing it in a way that's useful for you. So we're working on new features that would enhance this specifically for EMDR, and that will be all released on the platform in the near future.
Exciting.
So going back to the podcast, we were talking a lot about the way we do BLS or the way we do working memory taxation or do attention stimulation. If I want to do just bilateral eye movements, I go to the visual task, put it on the fixed speed, choose a ball color, let's say blue, and make it go horizontal. Then in that way, if I do my session as I would always do, the only thing I have to do is start the task, and there will be a ball moving into the screen
Yep.
of Bridger from left to right. So now he's on a phone, so it's smaller eye movements. If he's on an iPad, it's bigger. If he's on a big screen sitting in front of it, it's wide eye movements. And I can control it in this way,
Whoa.
making it go faster.
Yeah.
Are you up to that speed?
Yep.
It's too fast.
That's fast.
That's really fast. So I will pause it because the whole idea of this series is the working memory theory, as I was told. And we've built a system around that. So what I would do is I would set the visual task on the automatic mode. That's our AI powered mode, and make the ball movements go random. So it's not going only horizontal, but it's going randomly in the screen. And now while we're doing the taxation, I'm going to ask Richard to press on his phone on the right side of his screen on the touchscreen button, the visual touchscreen button, every time the ball changes from a ball into a cylinder. And we'll make it a game. You're trying to do it as good as you can while still thinking about the memory. So we're trying to maybe gamify it in a bit, and we will see as people that are watching this on YouTube that the ball speed slider will go up and down based on the performance of my client. So
No
I
pressure.
want you to focus on the ball and do it. Really good. What do you think, Jan? Is he doing good?
He's doing great.
Okay. So what people in the podcast can now see is that this ball speed slider, it started at 25%, it's going up, and it will keep going up because it's too slow now or it's not fast enough. And it will keep speeding up until it's almost too much. And we can monitor it with this visual response that is flickering, that if it's flickering green, he's pressing it on time. And if it's red, he is not clicking it on time. So those colors are indicators for us what's happening with Bridger and his response time. So it's still going up. So if we would probably do this for a few minutes, you're getting used to the task, and then you're better, and then you will proceeding. But you're at now, you don't see the ball speeds, you don't see the speed as a client, so there's no pressure. Like you don't see if you're doing it well or bad. But me as a clinician, I can see that. So what did you notice when doing this task, Richard?
Yeah, I think there's a like I'm just processing through holding a target in mind. I felt like it was going to keep climbing. But if I was actually working on a memory, I don't think I could have gone that fast. So it'd be interesting to see how it would adjust if these sets are, 30 seconds a minute in length as you're actively working through the trauma. Yeah, and I think it held my attention in a way that traditional bilateral stimulation has not.
It does. And the good thing is that, like, although we make it a game, you would not know as a client if you're doing it okay or not okay. And let's say you're processing a real memory and the speed is at 30%, you would not know. So now you're at 47, but what if you're really thinking about a memory? It's slower, but that is on that moment actually the right speed. So it's not the higher in this case that's better, but it's for that time, for that session, for that moment,
Right.
the right level of taxation that our system is looking for. So it can be that it's now at 47. Maybe another target would be at 60%. That's all possible.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So what we always say, there's a lot more features, but what we always say is that start with the visual as a therapist and client. If a client is above 60%-ish and you want to add more, you go to the audio task. Then we're doing working memory taxation, not only visual, but also auditory. So again, think about the memory, a memory bridger, focus on the ball, still press the button for the ball changing the shape, but also press the left side touchscreen button when you hear a string sound. I'm not sure. I don't think the people listening will hear it, but you will hear a random string sound.
Yeah.
Maybe they will hear with the microphone. And if you hear it, press the left side. So you're doing, in essence, a bilateral left and right, left hand, right hand,
Yeah.
and auditory and visual. But this one would be really hard. I always feel when the audio is on, but we'll see. I can hear it. That's good.
Oh.
For the people
Ah.
seeing this, we can see with those colors for the visual task and the audio task that he's not responding sometimes or too slow. That means that this is really taxing now. I can see it's really grabbing all his attention. While probably if he had a real memory in mind, it would slow down more and more till the point where we're in the optimal window again. So pause it. It's hard, right?
That's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this, but I want to make sure you can maintain just the horizontal eye movements with the ball changing, where you still have to tap when it changes. So even if someone is not implementing any new kind of creative use of like eye movements or taxing the working memory for standard EMDR, this is still a feature that you could implement to kind of gauge where they add in their window of tolerance and are we at that optimal level or not.
Yeah, exactly. So if, let's say, I put the audio sound off and go to visual, I just put it on horizontal. The same principles would be there. It's going faster and slower. And I can add, if we're doing horizontal, binaural sounds. I'm not sure, you were talking about buzzers. You like them. We have auditory sounds from left to right for the BLS. So we can enable that in here as well. And it's connected to the ball on the left and it's connected to the ball on the right. Probably you need headphones connected to your phone
Yeah.
for them to work, but it can be all there. So let's try it and show the people the face-to-face mode in here. Because if we're not video calling, because we're not, I go to face-to-face mode. For me, the whole platform changes the UI, the user interface.
I forget that I'm supposed to be touching that.
You hear the sound as well, or?
Yeah.
We don't, but that's okay. So like when the ball is on the left for you, you hear the sound on the left, like a ping, and on the right. So we're doing a bilateral, not only visual, but also auditory, all in the system.
Yeah. Very cool.
Very, very cool.
To wrap it up, as for this demo, while we were talking about trying to be an all-in-one platform where there's a transcript running of your session, you could also type your notes in here, whatever you want, but also choose any protocol that you want to have in your screen, because many therapists have a printed out or a PDF of any document or protocol that they want to use. So we have built it in here that people can go through a certain protocol and also access custom protocols. So, for example, we're working with Beyond Healing to upload a protocol or a document that they think is useful to have in place when you're doing sessions. So that would mean that you fill in a code, you choose the protocol, and then their protocol would load there. So trying to combine that all, making it more personalized for people that are being trained in a certain way to have that all in hand when you're doing actual sessions with clients.
Yeah, I think that's so helpful, especially for newer clinicians where it's kind of overwhelming to have your script in hand and to have all of the technology or the computer and trying to also then be a therapist while you're learning this. So that it's the fact that it's just embedded right there and you can literally be like scrolling while you're running the session and seeing like what's that next question I'm supposed to ask or prompt. I think that's a really, really nice feature, as well as the space where kind of on the right-hand side, you could indicate like where is the SUD at as you track it. So with each time you're checking in on the SUD scale or the VOC, there's a little marker that you can select it and it'll keep a log. So you're kind of seeing the progress of that session. As a consultant, I love that feature for, hey, bring me your note post a session and let's use this data while we go through consultation to see like what was maybe happening and what did we need to try differently to see it be more successful.
Yeah, actually, like in the system, we hear more and more from people that the documentation time or the time that you have to do before or after the session is getting out of hand sometimes. So we were like, how can we facilitate that? So indeed, just to wrap up the demo, you can like fill in the SOT scale here or the VOC scale and just click through it when you're doing your session while you're typing your notes. And what's also really cool, if you're doing a remote session and you have a transcript running, then after your session, you have your notes in here, you had the protocol in there, you have your transcript of the session, and you have the measurements filled in the system. So what we've done now is one of our newest releases is if you finish the session in here, we have a session overview. So it's a session where you see your notes, you see the start time, end time, SUD scale, VOC scale. And if you would have a transcript on, there will be another box with a transcript word for word that you then can summarize with AI to share with a client or to share somewhere else. And we could do so much in here to really make it EMDR specific that could help you with documentation. We don't store it yet. We're working on that, where it's stored for per client if you want as a clinician. Also, if you don't want, we're not storing anything. We are completely HIPAA compliant. But if you want to store this info on a client profile, and the next week when you start, you want to start at that visual speed with this video and background, and you know what the averages were or the session duration, it's all in there. So hopefully that will help clinicians with summarizing documentation more.
Very cool.
Wonderful. Sandra, thanks so much for taking time to demo all of this and walk through it. And Bridger, great job as a client.
Hey, thanks.
You did really well.
I feel very supported.
Well
It was
done.
nice having you both here.
Okay, well, this will wrap the demonstration. And as noted before, I'm sure we'll continue to talk about this, and we have more things we're collaborating on and brainstorming with. So until next time.